Ladies and gentlemen, it is Marcel here, and we'll be having a calculus course from beginner to pro. So let's write it down to get it more clear. Calculus from, let's say, from rookie to master. And by that I mean this course will be pretty much for self-learners and also for those from the university studying maths. It will be useful for them too, but we'll start with easier examples and easier theorems, and then we'll get to more complicated ones. So what we'll be actually doing is, let's write down how we will go. So first we'll be talking about limits, and this is going to be, the next video is going to be on limits. And then let's change color. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be derivatives. Okay, the next thing is going to be the integrals. Okay, and then this is the basic stuff. Okay, let's say white. This is pretty much the basic stuff of calculus. Basics of calculus. And the reason why it's the basics of calculus, the reason why these are basics is that the fundamental theorem of calculus connects all those three parts, which is pretty amazing, and we'll come to that pretty sure. I wanted to have it in first lesson, but the truth is that you won't understand it, and we have to go one by one, and I think this is the best way to do it. So the fundamental, don't need to be able to read this, it's of no importance. The fundamental theorem of calculus. Okay, it's gonna be pretty amazing. I really love it. It's pretty useful thing. Okay, so after the integrals we'll be going for some more advanced stuff like 3D space vectors and stuff like that. 3D space vectors, vector algebra and stuff like that. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. It's pretty interesting, but it is complicated. So under the limits we'll be talking about limits of sequence, limits of functions, and limits to infinity at certain points. And when we'll be talking about derivatives, we'll be going from the basic theorems of derivatives and proving those. Then we'll have a implicit differentiation or partial differentiative, as you like to call it. It's all the same, and we'll have some theorems which are pretty amazing. And then the integrals, of course, basic stuff, complicated stuff, and then hopefully pretty soon we'll come to the 3D space and vectors. They're pretty interesting, they are complicated to understand. And how these classes will be looking, they will be looking pretty much like, given some theorems, I'll give you some theorems. Some of them will prove, some of them we won't. If you would like to prove me, just write down in a comment and we'll prove that. And the second thing that we're gonna do, it's going to be called like 1a, is going to be an example of that theorem. So we'll we'll number the theorems from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and like that, because if we would like to prove it later, because for some theorems there is further knowledge needed, and we'll count them from 1 to n. That's actually a good mathematical expression. And so maybe when we'll be the derivatives, we'll prove some of the theorems for limits. So when we're talking about derivatives, I'll say like, okay, we're going to prove the theorem number 5. And the theorem number 5, there will be only one theorem number 5, because when we'll be talking about derivatives, we won't start counting from the beginning. So we might start counting, let's say, at around 10 when we'll come to derivatives or something like that. So the limits will be like from 1 to 10, and then the derivatives from 10 to 20, I don't know, something like that. So I think it's gonna be pretty cool, and hope I won't confuse you in these tutorials too much. If I will, just write a comment down below, I'll explain it, because when I'm giving lessons, people say sometimes it's a bit confusing, but I hope that these things are going to be clear. We'll do a bunch of examples. The examples are important to fully understand the calculus and all its beauty. The calculus is a very beauty thing. So this would be for the first video everything, and the next time we will start with, let's write a title, will be talking about limits, and the first thing is going to be a limit theorem or equation for limits. Okay, this is like this will be written, and then the second thing to the first A would be a limits at infinity. Okay, you actually don't need to read this. What is written badly, hopefully you don't need to read it. So that's it. That's for today, and see you in the next video. We'll be doing limits, as I said.